Okay, so the title's a bit of a hyperbole. If I were to title this accurately, it would be Reading Newer Releases from Authors I Originally Read 8 to 11 years ago but haven't read again in a significant chunk of time. I'm Kayla, welcome to another episode celebrating my 10 years on BookTube. Today we're talking about authors I haven't read for 10 years. First up, Taheda Mafi. I read Shatter Me before I even had a BookTube channel. My very first year on BookTube, I read the second and third book in that series. I never continued. I have all of these Goodreads updates that I can look back on reading that series. It was a bit of a fever dream for me. I also read this duology in 2017. Other authors I'm going to be exploring in this video is because I originally read YA from them and now they're writing adult novels. Taheda Mafi is still writing YA, but honestly, this Woven Kingdom, I just keep seeing popping up in my feed and I want to give it a go. Next on my list, we've got Casey West. I read Casey West for the first time in the very first month of my channel. When I started it, November 2014, I began with The Distance Between Us. I gave it a 3-star originally, but there was just something about her writing that kept me coming back year after year. I read maybe 2 of her titles every single year, and there were quite a few 5 stars that I got. She had the rom-com vibes that I was looking for. She had love interests I always liked, and the main characters had a lot of personality. And now she has an adult debut romance, We Met Like This. And I'm so excited to see if everything that I liked in her YA books translate to her adult books. Let's move on to Nicola Yoon. In 2015, Everything was a favorite of the year for me. Soon after, I heard from a lot of readers some problematic elements that they recognized that I hadn't considered. That one became a movie that I hated. And then I think the next year she came out with The Sun Is Also a Star, also became a movie. I didn't like that book quite as much. I think she's only published one other book since then, before her now adult debut, One of Our Kind. It looks and sounds and is marketed as general fiction. But then it was re-released this year again as horror, and now it's piqued my interest a little bit more. So those are the 3 authors and the 3 books that I feel good committing to here. I really want to give those ones a go, but I also have 4 more that I might try out in this video, and we'll just see how that goes. Ali Condi, I was not a fan of Matched back in 2014, but now she's writing adult thrillers, so I figured I would give The Unwedding a try. Court Stevens wrote one of my favorite YA books of all time back in 2017, Dress Codes for Small Towns. The last time I read from her was 2020, and now she has an adult debut called Tell Me Something Good that's a mystery, so I want to try that one out. For Stephanie Perkins, I never got into the Anna and the French Kiss series, but I did dabble with her YA horror in 2017, and I read her short story collections, or I think she was the editor of them, and she had a story in each of these collections in 2014 and 2016 respectively, and now she has an adult debut called Overdue. That sounds really messy, so I wanted to give that a try. And then finally, Renee Ahdieh. The Wrath and the Dawn was a 2015 favorite of mine. I read the sequel, I read the first book in another series, and now it's been 8 years since I've read anything from her, and she also has an adult debut called Park Avenue. I wish that she was writing adult fantasy, but I'll take it, and I'm gonna give that one a try. So that's a handful of authors that I originally read around 10 years ago and haven't read them for a large chunk of years, and now I'm going to try them again a lot of times in the case of their first adult novel. So I'm just going to vlog throughout the week whatever I end up picking up, and also letting you in on any reflections that I have on 10 years on BookTube, or differences between things, because I just found some screenshots from my Goodreads from 2014, 2015 that I think will be funny to look back on. But I'll talk to you when I start reading something. Dystopian future kind of book, which is totally the thing right now. A dystopian future where there's one girl who's different than everybody else, and she has to fight and defeat bad people, and along the way she finds her one true love. The first half of the book, like I said on Instagram, I did not like it. I had to force myself to keep reading. The writing style of it is annoying as hell. Watching myself attempt to review a book when I had never reviewed a book before, in fact never seen anyone else review a book before, is a lot. Truly, what was I talking about? This was before I had a BookTube channel. I could not give you a good idea of what the book was, or even what I was supposed to say in a review. And I think that's why I like doing reading vlogs as opposed to just wrap-ups, because I like being able to talk about the book and what I'm enjoying and not enjoying, and like kind of piecing together the plot as I discuss it with you. So I'm now a quarter of the way through This Woven Kingdom. And I think a reason I was really interested in reading this one is because I've seen a lot of people talk about the relationship and specifically the love interest in here, Cameron. And because this series is still actively coming out, like it feels like something that is relevant, even though it's YA fantasy, and I don't really read a lot of YA fantasy. What's happening in here is eventually it's going to be a forbidden romance because we have a crowned prince and we have a djinn. Djinns and humans, or clay is what they're referred to, I think I'm understanding that properly, aren't that different, but they're treated very differently. And our main character, Aliza, I want to say, she is a djinn, but she's from a royal family and she's acting as a servant, and she's being treated rather poorly, and her and this prince and this other person have this encounter, and throughout the first quarter of this they have basically been discovering each other's identities. He finally like saw her entire face and he understands like what she is, and the djinn have like water as blood or like frozen eyes, which is just a really interesting concept because when he first encounters her there's like this bloody exchange and she's very torn up, but there's no blood left behind on her handkerchief, and she's trying to like disguise herself in this servant position, but she's not pulling it off very well because everyone can tell she comes from nobility. And then on Cameron's side, I think it's actually going to be, this is how they like relate, is that she's really misunderstood and he is misunderstood in a certain sense as well, because he doesn't really know how to act as a prince, and certain things that he is doing as a prince, he feels like he's following the rules and doing what he's supposed to do, but he's getting in trouble, and he just had this encounter that isn't going to be perceived well, and so he needs to now be like the perfect prince and find a wife and like appease a bunch of people. There's war brewing. So I'm intrigued by the characters. I'm interested to see where it goes, and this is what I will be reading today. I found a screenshot of my Goodreads from 10 years ago. I was organizing a bunch of family photos and things, and I found these. Goodreads didn't really look that different, which is concerning, but not really surprising with how slow they are to update things. I had 202 ratings under my belt with a 3.45 average, and I had written 70 reviews. I think I took a screenshot of this because it says number 66 best reviewer and number 23 most followed, and I was like, oh my God. This must have been like a year into having my channel, and I was like, look, I'm doing things, I'm making numbers. And the thing about this that's so funny is I can go to my Goodreads right now and it'll say number 3 most followed. And I've seen a lot of people, not to take away from anybody's joy and excitement, but I've seen a lot of people posting their like Goodreads numbers and they're like, I'm number 1 most followed. And like there's 100 of us that are number 1 most followed, because if you actually hover over it, it's like designated to certain things. Like maybe you're the most followed person from your country that specific week, or you're the best reviewer. Like I don't even know what that means. Like, I'm not a good reviewer. I don't write written reviews, but because people follow me, they're going to like things even if I'm not even leaving a review. I'm just like putting a star rating out there. So yeah, for me, I'm 14 best reviews of Canada this week. So I'm not the number 3 most followed person on all of Goodreads. And now I have pretty much the same average rating 10 years later, but I have 1,800 ratings and only 500 reviews. I've only written 500 and something reviews. I also have all of these photos because I would take a screenshot anytime anyone mentioned me on Twitter. Like I was so happy that people were like retweeting me or noticing my reviews. Like, I was tagging authors like crazy, and I definitely did not know at the time to not tag authors. I would never tag them in a negative review, but if it was like a 3-star review, I would still tag them. And I had a couple authors back in the day who would definitely tweet me back and be like, oh, sorry you didn't like the book. But yeah, if anybody liked my stuff or retweeted me and they were authors, I was very proud of that, I guess. Oh, and then I also have a screenshot. I feel like I've shared this before, but I found it in here and I thought I had lost this. The original comment that made me look up BookTube and what BookTube was. So again, thank you, Rebecca Beck, for leaving this comment 10 years ago. And then I have this, which is a calendar showing all the videos that I was posting, which I still keep. But apparently I was posting 3 to 4 times a week. I do not remember ever doing that. And I don't know if that was just for this week. And it just happens to be October. Like the one photo that I have is from this same month. I was posting Tag Tuesdays. I was posting, it was time for my monthly TBR. I was doing quarterly wrap-ups, standalone book reviews, movie reviews. Since I'm being nostalgic, I am going to do a little channel members reaction to some old tag videos. I did one, I'll link it down below in case you didn't see, like earlier this year, to the public. And then I did a spin-off that was just a little more niche for the channel besties. And now I'm gonna do a couple more. The tags that I have pulled up that I thought could be interesting are the intimidating TBR tag, the weird habits reading tag, which there are no questions, so I really don't know what I'm gonna talk about in here. And there's one called the not safe for work book tag, in which there's a question that says, what fictional character do you have the most not safe for work thoughts about? And I'm about to be horrified at my answer from 10 years ago and give you the answer current day. I've actually been doing a lot of reaction stuff for the besties. I did the Taylor Swift Life of a Showgirl reaction. I did the first episode of Love is Blind, and then I'm doing this one. So in case that's something that piques your interest, the link is always down below. And I'll check in with you again later today when I'm a bit further the way through this. Hello, it is much later. I have been filming all day and editing and putting things together and making plans. I have gotten to about the halfway point of this, and I'm only updating you because the sun's about to set and I didn't want to waste the decent lighting. Unfortunately, I don't really have much to say. I'm liking this more than Shatter Me as far as the writing style. That's one thing I know for sure. I don't think I could have told you this was the same author. Not much has really happened at this point. There has been revelations like about each other to each other. They haven't really interacted much. They're both dealing with their own things and the pressures from their own sides. There is a ball coming up, so I imagine they're both going to attend and see each other across the dance floor or something of that nature. Not that this is like a giggly fun story. Everything has a lot of weight to it. Every time they're thinking about each other, it's like intense, because there are certain things that have to happen to her based on, you know, according to his family and his side of the things. Like they found a djinn. Like that's not a good thing. They don't want her to thrive, you know. In their minds, she is not a good entity to have around. So I do appreciate that they haven't really interacted, because I love a slow burn. It doesn't really feel like a slow burn at this point because it doesn't feel like anything. It doesn't feel like they really have anything going on. So I feel like once they do, then I'll feel something. So I'm waiting for that. The people who convinced me over the years that this is something I need to read, I think this has been out for a couple years now. It's about like the yearning between the two, and specifically Cameron. And I've seen people like refer to him in certain ways where he's like the guy, like he's so obsessed with her, and like the yearning is really there for him. Obviously it's a forbidden romance. Like that's something I'm very into. It has not been romance other than him just saying, oh my God, she's so fucking beautiful, I can't take it. Anyway, I think I'm really gonna crack into this now because I've just been kind of, you know what? No, don't sell yourself short. 278 pages in. That's a lot for one day of reading. But I feel like I've picked it up and put it down like a million times. And at this point, I'm just gonna maybe blow through it all. Good morning. I took quite a bit longer to read this book than I planned. To be fair, it is 500 pages. Why did I expect to be able to read this in like 2 days? It took me this might be the 5th day that I was reading this, but I liked it. I liked it like enough. I think my final rating is going to be a 3.5. Something that these books definitely have in common, like what I was reading 10 years ago versus now, is Taheda Mafi still uses 10 words instead of 1 word. Like I don't want to say it's overwritten, like it's unnecessary. It is just more descriptive than a lot of other authors. Someone doesn't just walk somewhere. It's like describing footsteps and what they feel like and what they look like and how they feel. And it's interesting how I started a series from her 10 years ago and gave it like a 3, but I still needed to continue in the series, and that's not something that happens to me super often. If I'm reading the first book in a series of 3, I don't want to continue. Like, I'm not someone who is convinced when people say, oh, the series gets so good and like the first book just isn't the best. With her books, for some reason, I yet again just finished something from her and I'm like, I didn't love it, but I really want to continue. And it's not in the case of a lot of other fantasy end books where there's, well, you know what? There is a reveal at the end. And we get some action in the last 50 pages that kind of switched up the vibe of the book. But it's not that. It's not just that. A lot of times fantasy will hook you at the end because something crazy happens, like a big reveal or a big twist, something that's going to change the impact of the entire series. And you're like, oh my God, I have to know what's going to happen now. That's not why I want to continue. I want to continue just because I'm interested in the main character and I'm most interested in her romantic interests, because I think there might be another one kind of being introduced to us. And I wonder if she's kind of going between multiple people in the series or if we are committed to this one prince. I can't really tell, but I know that people talk about the yearning of this book series. And I thought it was this specific book, but perhaps it's the series at large. Like, there's yearning from Cameron, or is there yearning from another character? I don't really know, and I want to know. I'm very intrigued by what's happening, and I don't know if there's much more plot that I can even tell you about. I don't think very much happened in this book, but at the same time, it's so hard for me to know if I should continue, because a lot of times with fantasy series, like when things get more fantastical, I like them less. Like, I know that one of the books in this series has a dragon on the cover, and I don't necessarily want to read about like epic fantasy things, but I do feel invested in Eliza's like personal journey and romantic journeys that could come. This one feels like a pretty solid 3.5 though. This definitely wasn't my greatest review. Maybe after 10 years I haven't really improved that much, but okay, I need to talk about something else because this didn't give me the romance that I was really looking for. But the next book, there's a girl named Cayman, and she works in a doll shop. And one day a boy comes in who is older and has money, and his name is Xander, and he's coming to pick up a doll for his grandma or whatever. And then the two people kind of fall in love. Okay, so I started We Met Like This by Casey West. I love her YA stuff, but I don't want to read YA anymore. Like, I'm just really not interested in reading about teenagers. But what I find with a lot of adult books, I feel like I've talked about this a lot over the years, is they just get so intense. They get so heavy. They get so like, we're at an age where we need to start having children and making like intense life decisions and careers and like who I'm gonna marry. So I like adult when we're still navigating things and they're lighthearted and they're fun. And so that's why I'm always looking for a rom-com. This one isn't necessarily a rom-com, but it is in that realm. I'm already a third of the way through. I'm eating it up. And I think this is just like the perfect transition from Casey West writing YA to adult, because she has so many like makings of her YA in here. Like, we have a similar main character. The only difference is she is trying to figure out her career. And also she's like really horned up. Margot is very lusty. We got a sex scene on the very first page, which was a little bit jarring until I realized that it was with the love interest that we're going to get in the book. So basically her and Oliver, they have this one night, they're getting hot and heavy. They do some stuff in the car. Like, it doesn't get super explicit, but at the same time, she's talking about her nipple on the very first page. They have this date, they have this incredible chemistry, but throughout their makeout session, they kind of realize they don't really know anything about each other, and they don't really have chemistry as far as their personalities. It's just that they find each other incredibly attractive, and they're, you know, bodies are working together well. So they kind of break things off, and throughout the last couple years they've encountered each other on these dating apps over and over again, sometimes like accepting each other and saying hello and just being friendly, and sometimes like declining each other. They've just seen each other around, and at this point they reconnect again, and they're both kind of struggling with what they're doing wrong with dating and why the apps aren't working and why all of these dates are failing. So they agree to help each other out with flirting and pickup lines and stuff. That's not really the premise of the book, because they get involved, I feel like, pretty early on, though it still feels like a slow burn because they've decided to just be friends. But they have they're so like magnetically charged to one another that they just can't help but constantly like flirting with each other, and they want to help each other find the person they want to be with, and they've kind of agreed that each other is not that person. There's been a little bit of stressful stuff because she's been dating someone or sleeping with somebody she definitely shouldn't be, and is trying to move on from that relationship, and is also trying to navigate her career and start her own like agency. She works in publishing, which is very fun. I'm really liking the setup so far. I feel like I could rate this pretty highly. So I'll give it like another quarter and then I'll check in with you again. I've made it through another chunk. I would say almost 2/3 of the way through. And something that I really like about this that I think a lot of adult romance doesn't really do is having various different characters for our main character to bounce off of, to talk to engage with, to talk about her problems, to problem solve. And I think that's something that Casey West does really well in her YA books, and something that it does exist in a lot of teen books is like various friends. In adult romance, I find that there's like a one best friend character. Like the main character always has to have one best friend who they confide in, who they tell everything to, or a sister, or they have an entire group of friends. And it's like every time it's like always those 4 girls getting together every couple chapters to talk about their problems. And something that I'm liking that she's keeping from her other books and has like the lighthearted kind of high school vibe is just various people that she gets to share information with, and that keeps the book interesting. Like she has a client she's talking to who is problem solving for her. She has a love interest. She has her sister. She has a friend, a coworker. Like there are various people that she's bouncing around between. Everything's kind of coming to a head all at the same time. Like it's not the most dramatic book ever. It is a lighthearted romance. But she has an issue with work, an issue with the boy, an issue with her sister, and it's all kind of happening, like building at the same time. Then eventually things are gonna be like, oh my god, I can't take it anymore. Like something's got to give. I also really like Oliver as a character. He's really trying to protect his heart because he's been hurt in the past, and he doesn't want to have a purely physical relationship with Margot, but they have established that they're not going to be together. And so she's thinking like, okay, well, let's just hook up. Like we clearly have this chemistry and neither of us want to get invested in a relationship, so let's just hook up. But we're getting like little glimpses. They haven't had a really full out conversation. I'm sure that's coming soon about how they actually want to navigate this relationship. But because there have been agreements in the past, she's not going to go back on them, but she like really wants to hook up with this guy. So she's like, let's just go for it. And then they're both each kind of getting offended or not willing to share their entire feelings. And I'm just excited to see where it goes from here, because we're definitely going to get a payoff. There's already been a scene of her like rolling around in his bed that was so funny and cute and sexy because they were working on a little project together. Once they actually get to it, I think it's going to be good. This book's pace is so perfect. They're going on a little trip together now. Very cute. I do think she's having to do a little bit too much heavy lifting in this dynamic. Like, you know, I love an obsessed man, and that's not so much what's happening. It feels like she's having to do a lot of convincing him to want her, or like she's just putting herself out there a lot. Like I said, she's very horny, but also like romantically interested in him at this point, and is putting herself out there multiple times. And it's not like he's shooting her down. Like he's obviously into her, and he is sharing that he's into her, but he's also like very hesitant at the same time and trying to communicate the best he can, but also keeping something from her. And I'm starting to worry that the thing he's keeping from her is bigger than 70 pages can handle. Oh, fuck. No, this is so stressful. Why would you do this, Casey? Okay, I have a lot of thoughts. but I don't think they're going to be that interesting for the majority of people. If you just want to hear me yap, I will do that. But my just initial gut reaction review, I think for other people, this is a good, solid, interesting romance. I think people will like it. I think the average person is going to give it like a 3.5. It has a lot of the makings of a typical romance book. Like, it's following a lot of similar beats, but it's also really self-aware at the same time because she is working in the book industry. She's talking about certain things that happen in books, and she's looking for her own meet cute, and she's talking about the only one bed trope. Casey West is just a very self-aware author with what she's doing, and I'm really excited to follow her career. I'm going to give this a 4. She is one of my favorite authors. Like, I have given her 5 stars 3 times. They were in YA, and so the fact that I know that she could be my favorite adult romance author, it like kills me that this wasn't perfect, and so much so that I can easily pull out the things that weren't perfect, but those critiques would make more sense as like an editor or an agent or whatever, more so than a reviewer. Because I really am looking at this, like, it's so hard to not look at this through the lens of her YA stuff, specifically with like giving not even a backstory, but evidence that our character is the age that she is and has had multiple experiences, because all of her YA books were so early in a character's life. Like, most of the time we're witnessing her first love story. She hasn't had any issues with anything really. Like, she's just been going through life, and suddenly like, oh, there's a little bit of a problem with her math teacher and her first boyfriend. And in here, it did feel like she was dealing with conflict for the first time. Yet we know that she has been on this long journey of the publishing career, and she's gone to school, and she's had all these friends, and she has all these connections, but it doesn't necessarily feel like that. I don't think we're given a lot of evidence that she's been through trials before. We're told that she's had life experiences, but it feels like all of the mistakes that her and Oliver are both making, like, it's the first time. And so they don't feel like nearly 30-year-olds to me. Tone-wise, I think this book is good. It wasn't super rom-com hilarious, and then it wasn't super deep and emotional. Like, we didn't have people sobbing. It wasn't like the most drama. It was all kind of like even keel. Like, it was fun. They had a little bit of banter. They had some drama. But because of the bomb that's dropped in the 3rd act, I think that's going to be a deal breaker for a good amount of readers, and I think it's really bold to be doing this in your very first adult romance. She's obviously very aware of the market, so I think it's done intentionally. We've already had an announcement of her next adult title, so I'm so excited. What I need is a love interest who's taking charge more. I really need a strong personality, because he just kind of existed in here, and you can do that with YA male love interests. They're always just kind of there to prop up our main character. And I just want more in an adult romance if we're supposed to feel like, oh my God, about this man. Because I want to feel the same way that Margot feels about him. But even in like the steamy scenes, we're not getting his feelings. We're not getting his thoughts. We're not getting his noises. Like, it's not about him, and I want it to be more about him. And obviously every love interest in every book is going to be different. I don't want like the same thing in every book, but when everything is so good, like, I want the perfect love interest, and he has to be more dynamic than just like, no doubt he had flaws, but he was more just like existing. Even when there was conflict, like, she was reaching out, and it's great for like, you know, character growth and giving me a strong female main character. But yeah, it was like almost perfect, which just gives me so much hope for her future adult romance career. I hope she continues with it. I hope everyone reads her stuff and she gets super successful, and I get more and more and more and more. The official release date is not until September, and I will 100% be purchasing a physical copy of it because it is so beautiful. It is so amazing. It's about a girl who has this like disease, and so she can't leave her house. It felt very like fairy tale-esque to me, like Tangled, how she's like trapped in her tower and she can't come out, and then there's this boy who like comes to her rescue. Okay, first thing on the docket today is recording a podcast. Libby so kindly invited me back for season 2. They have this new podcast format. It's very long. It's like segments within it where there's interviews with authors, then there's a panel of bookish content creators, and we talk about whatever the theme is of the week, and we recommend 2 books each. So I have my books ready. The theme, I don't want to give away, you know, all of the episodes, but this is the vibe for the theme of the episode we're doing. I'm about to log on for our Zoom call and they record it and they put, I don't know when season 2 is going to be out. I've just had the most fun time chatting with everybody. This is not something that I think if you told me 10 years ago, I would be like hanging out on Libby's podcast. Did I even know Libby existed 10 years ago? I remember the time people were always talking about Overdrive. They were like, oh, you have to get the Overdrive app. And I was like, I don't really care. I wasn't really listening to audiobooks, but I don't think I even knew that ebooks were on there or that I could get ebooks for free. Anyway, I actually have no idea what book I'm going to start, but I'm going to get to my episode and then I'll check in with you later. Oh my gosh, I had to turn on the heat today. I'm wearing my sweater. It's October. The heat is on. And I like being cold. So you know how cold it has to be in here for me to be turning the heat on. I went to the library. I grabbed a lot of things, but the most important one of our kind. And I have started it. I'm only a quarter of the way in and I have thoughts. Good thing I have a YouTube channel and a camera so I can tell you all of my thoughts. We have Jasmine and King. They are married, they have a young son, and she is currently pregnant, and they're moving into this exclusively Black community in California. Her goal with moving to this community is to both feel safe and to like connect with like-minded individuals, neither of which really happen for her. So there's this spa that exists in their neighborhood, and the people in the neighborhood seem to get really obsessed with it, including her husband. So much so that it's just like giving this ominous feeling and she kind of feels unsafe because of that. And then as far as the people, they're just not her idea of enlightened individuals. The neighborhood is called Liberty and it's referred to as like a Black utopia. I can't remember what her job is. It doesn't say it. She works with like the law. And she helps people and she just kind of expects moving into this community that everyone else is going to be as social justice-ly minded as herself. She's really trying to escape like Eurocentric beauty standards, and the book is a quarter of the way in talking a lot about that. Like we're just really getting her views on everything and anything, and her walking around the neighborhood introducing herself to people, and everyone that she meets she has a critique of. They don't necessarily want to help her with putting together a Black Lives Matter chapter in the area. The people she's meeting, they have chemically straightened hair. They seem to still be centering whiteness in certain ways from her perspective. And she's just talking about how she can't find a single person who agrees with her or who is prioritizing Blackness in their lives the way that she thought this community would. And she's just placing a lot of judgment on everybody. Sometimes it's very on the surface things and sometimes it's very deeply rooted issues and things she cares a lot about. I would say at this point, a quarter of the way in, it's established a lot and that's great, but I don't really get what the plot is. And we're talking a lot about plastic surgery, and I'm trying to figure out if this book is trying to keep from me that like all of the people in the neighborhood clearly have gotten plastic surgery to embody a different race, or if that's supposed to be a reveal or that's supposed to be the point of the book. Because if that's supposed to be a reveal later, like it's very heavy-handed, and it does remind me of reading Nicola Yoon's YA, in which, I don't know how to phrase this properly, but it doesn't feel like it's written for people who share an identity or life experience as her. It feels very educational. It's letting us know what it's like for her to be Black in America, what it's like to have a young Black son in America, what it's like as a Black person to experience police brutality, witnessing police brutality. Jasmine has such a clear sense of self, and to us she's a very clear character. All of her morals and opinions are laid out very clearly for us, and I'm very interested to see where the plot is going to go. There is this ominous feeling, but it doesn't feel ominous enough. I'm thinking of a comp for this would be Lakewood, and Lakewood you definitely get a bigger sense of the danger earlier on, and right now there's just a lot of her navigating real life. And then I'm interested to see how much it ramps up in the horror. I can't imagine too much because it's supposed to just be fiction. I don't know. Curious where it's gonna go. Well, I'm almost to the end. I haven't had anything to update you about. I don't know what to say. I don't think this book is bad for, oh my God, I don't know what to say about this. I don't think the book is bad for the character that it's highlighting. I think that there are characters in books that I read who have very strong opinions, whether they are widely accepted or not to be like the public opinion. When you have such a confident, strong-willed main character, a lot of people tend to not like those books, especially ones who have such a rigid idea of how other people should be living their lives. Jasmine is very quick to write off anybody who says one thing or does one thing, very small or big, that doesn't align with her own values and morals. And I think that some people could find that a relatable character. I think most people could probably find that a very difficult character to try to relate to. And I can't tell what Nicola Yoon is doing and if she wants us to agree with this character, because she has people regularly kind of calling her out, but at the same time, she's not willing to change, and that it's bad to look away from stuff because Jasmine is constantly confronting herself with traumatic things, and she wants everybody to do the same. She and maybe the book views everyone else who's just going about life ignoring horrific things like they are the problem. But I do also think that the book's message, but I don't think it's intentional. I think the book is coming across as showing us somebody who is confronting trauma to her own detriment. But that's kind of this is a very difficult conversation to navigate, because of course we shouldn't ignore horrific things happening in the world. And there is a nuanced take on that and how much to witness and how much to help. But I think people on either side of an extreme opinion wouldn't agree that there's any like nuance and there's no room for understanding the other perspective. I think this book has a strong perspective, but because it has such a strong perspective, it's actually giving a perspective from the other side. And I just don't know if that's on purpose. So I don't think the book is bad for the character that we're navigating. I think the book is bad because it's just not written as if she's a real character. Like, this doesn't feel like a story. This just feels like a list of horrific things. Like, it feels like a journal. Jasmine is just telling us in every single chapter all of the terrible things that are happening, all the terrible things that have ever happened. In this chapter, we're reading a news article about a Black man who's shot. And she spends that chapter reeling from that and confronting other people who aren't equally impacted by it. In the next chapter, she's reading an article about the mortality rate with pregnant people, Black people specifically, and how they need better care and how they aren't believed and they aren't treated properly. And her bringing that information to a friend and the friend not taking it as seriously as Jasmine is. The next chapter, she's witnessing somebody who cut off his locks. And she's really impacted by it because she's like, why would somebody do this? Why would they give in to wanting to look a certain way? And everyone around her seems to be kind of changing their perspective over time. And she is blaming the wellness spa for this. And all of her thoughts and everything that she's witnessing, important to talk about, right? Her perspective, fair or unfair, like, it's interesting navigating this, right? But it's not, because that's all the book is. I saw this thing happen. Here's my opinion on it. Why doesn't everyone care as much as me? Next chapter, next chapter, next chapter, next chapter. She just doesn't feel like a real character to me. The book doesn't feel like a real book to me. It's all just a vehicle for something else, but that something else isn't even clear. And apparently the ending is wackadoodle. Like, everybody is like, oh my God, the ending. And I don't know if they mean in like an angry way, because people have rated this really lowly, or in a shocking way. I can't imagine anything shocking is about to happen, but let's finish it up. Okay. There was nothing surprising about the ending as far as a reveal, because it's very clear from like 2 chapters in what's happening. In which case, I think this type of story could be successful. I feel like this can't be the first time this topic has been covered like this. I think this could have been successful as a novella because then it could have been a little bit punchier and accomplished a reveal. If not a novella, I think it could have leaned more into the horror. Maybe she could have made realizations earlier and then experienced like really intense stuff for a while, but I don't know if people would have liked that. If people already don't like the ending, which the intent of the book is even more questionable with the ending, but it does deliver in the horror thriller vibes. I'm gonna give it a 2. Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 2. But I would also direct you to other people's reviews instead of mine, because I think there's also a ton of stuff that I wouldn't even recognize is something that should be spoken about in a review about this book, you know? Anyway, that's that. That was a rough one. So I'm doing the rewrite, reread, burn tag. And you pick out 3 of them, 3 of the little books, and you have to choose which one you would reread, which one you would rewrite, and which one you would burn. The Maze Runner, Matched, and Big Little Lies. I would burn Matched, again, an easy one. For my final book, I'm just about to do reading sprints with my channel members, and I'm gonna read the first chapter of the books that I have remaining. I have audiobooks. I found audiobook samples of all of them. I'm going to read the first chapter of a Court Stevens, of an Ali Condi, of a Renee Audier, and then a book by Stephanie Perkins. That's what I'm doing. I read the first 4 chapters of the 4 books I was considering. The first one was overdue, and unfortunately I have to read the physical copy of this, not the audiobook. The narrator's breathing was really distracting, and I feel like that's not something I've ever noticed before in a book. It was like these really sharp inhales every once in a while, and I could not listen anymore. I couldn't even pay attention to what the story was.
My stomach flipped and tumbled. The subject had consumed me for days. I sat there because it was where most patrons went first.
So that's not the pick. The first chapter of Park Avenue was just about a woman like buying a Birkin, and it was just about extravagance, and I don't really know where the story's going, so I don't think that's the one for me today. Tell Me Something Good, that's by Court Stevens. There's a mystery, I know, but it opened up with a woman taking care of her mom, and it seemed really like sentimental, and it's gonna be more of a fiction drama with some side mystery. I just don't know if I'm in the mood for a really slow-paced thing right now. The first chapter of The Unwedding is not the one that I thought I would want to continue, but it definitely caught my attention the quickest. Actually, I own that book. Of the 4 that I just started, they're all brand new. That one came out like a year ago maybe, and I think I have it in my TBR closet. I'm pretty sure I bought it like at a bargain shop or something. Okay, so I found the books. I found the book in the depths of my TBR closet, and I am 100 pages in. I think it's fine. I don't have any really strong feelings towards it, but there's this woman who recently got divorced, and they have a couple children together, and she decided to go on this like anniversary trip by herself to California, to this retreat, this retreat to this resort, because she didn't really want to go to begin with, but her husband, her ex-husband, already has a new girlfriend, and she was worried he was going to take her, the other girlfriend, on the trip, and she was like, that's not fair, so I'm just going to go by myself. And then while she's there, she meets up with various other people who are on their own little trips, makes some friends the first night. There's a wedding happening at the resort, and she like talks to the bride for a second, like kind of hangs out with various people from the wedding party, and then she finds the dead body. Hold on, let me make sure. Okay, finds the body of the groom floating in the pool in the rain. Supposedly there were texts from him saying that he was abandoning the bride, like he was gonna leave. So either somebody killed him and then wrote those texts so nobody would be suspicious about where he was when he was missing from the wedding, or he did say he was leaving and somebody killed him because he was gonna like abandon her at the altar. So those are the 2 things we're kind of wondering about. And our main character, Ellery, she is having some flashbacks, some memories from something she did wrong with like a group of students back in the day when she was a teacher. There was like a horrific incident, and I don't know if that's just like her talking about her trauma, or if that's going to come back around and have to do with the current story. So that's what's happening, is there's a storm, they're kind of stuck there, and they have this dead body now. And so everyone's just kind of getting together, being amateur sleuths to figure out what happened to the guy. They're putting together timelines. They're like, when did he send the text? And when was sunrise? And when would someone have seen him in the pool? And blah, blah, blah. One thing I'm not really liking is the writing is just very kind of over dramatic, but also simplistic at the same time. It's just like not every single sentence has to be so ominous. Every single time she's thinking anything, it's like there's a little dramatic side thought. She was talking to some guy and she was saying a fact about herself, and she was like, oh, I assume he's thinking the same thing as me, but I have to remember any time that I think someone else is thinking the same thing as me, I'm wrong, because of that one time I thought someone was thinking the same as me and I was wrong. The flashbacks I think are fine. It's just they feel really heavy-handed. They're very much like, something happened, I'm not telling you the whole truth, reader. I hate when there's a thriller where I feel like I'm reading a thriller. I want to get sucked into the story. I'm not so much, but this is the book that was doing it more than the others. And I haven't read enough mystery thrillers this year, so we'll see how it goes. 3/4 of the way through, I need to stop reading this book. It's not offensively bad. It's just not good. Like, there's nothing good about it. And I feel like I've been reading it for 5 days. I put on my pajamas. I'm ready for bed. I want to go to bed. I need to wrap this up. I can't pick this back up in the morning. And I don't even know what to tell you about it. It's just this woman who is strangers with all these other people who all know each other, and they have all of these connections and backstories, and it's just like her talking to 12 different people. She goes and has a conversation, then she goes and has another conversation, then she goes and has another conversation, and like that's what the whole book is. The circumstances have gotten a little more deadly. Like, there's clearly something dangerous happening and everybody is kind of at risk. And it was intriguing for a second because like the power went out, and we also have the people, the employees, and they're trying to like keep everybody calm and like also try to control kind of the chaos. No cops can come investigate the dead body yet because of this storm. And so it's just like a lot of talking. They're just all talking about their past together and their theories. And it's not very interesting, because even if you're meant to put together the clues as it's a mystery book, there's too many theories that like every single person is like, I bet it's this person. She goes to talk to that person. I bet it's that person. I think it's that person. And like, it just feels like such a nothing book. Anyway, I'm going to finish it. It's not bad. It's not bad. It's just probably a 3-star mystery. Wow. There's only one person I would recommend this to, and it's somebody who reads mystery books and wants things to be really thoroughly explained, who wants to get the ending and then wants it told to you again 3 different times, and like maybe who gets a little bit confused or wants all of the pieces to be laid out really clearly so you understand everything, to the point that you want to stab out your own eyeballs. I can't oversell to you how 1/3 of this book was explaining the other 2/3 of this book. But it had to be 100 pages of her going, and here's what happened, and here's how I knew that this was this, and this was this, and this person did this. Here's how I connected everything. And then a scene of 10 people sitting in a circle with Ellery going, Ellery, you're so smart and so incredible. How did you figure this out? Tell us how you figured it out. And then she keeps talking about how she figured it out. And then we get an epilogue basically explaining more things, and I didn't care about any of them. Like, there's no way someone reads this book and cares about any of the characters enough to want that thorough of an explanation of all of their past history and how things were connected. And even her like discovering something was so crazy, because the entire book she's trying to figure out who killed someone. And then there's a moment where she asks someone, hey, did you do it? And they go, yeah. And I'm not joking. Like, that's actually not an exaggeration. It's like a bunch of people are in a room and she goes, did you do it? No. Did you do it? I didn't. I swear. Did you do it? I did it. She spent so much time trying to put together all the clues. She could have just asked people. Next time, just try to ask and see what happens. But then somehow there's a confession and then there's 100 more pages. And it didn't make things any more interesting. Wow, that was crazy. That was a crazy experience. I've got to give it like a 2. I don't think everyone will. Who the fuck? Megan Miranda? There's no way Megan Miranda blurbed this. We don't fuck with Megan Miranda anymore. Sorry. She's crazy for that. Harlan Coben, your guys' favorite Harlan Coben blurbed this. Lisa Gardner. This was a Reese's book club pick. What is she doing? And I guess that's why I say like not everyone will hate this. And I don't think a lot of it was really bad. It wasn't really poorly written. It just wasn't well constructed. And I think it's evident that this is a debut thriller, but there have been so many good debut thrillers, but perhaps switching from one genre to another in this case was just not the best thing to do. I believe she could definitely improve as an author in this genre, and maybe her future thrillers have a little more like, they're a little tighter, you know? Because it did feel like somebody who wrote not just YA previously, but kind of like fantastical and like series, because it felt like the end of a series where it needed to wrap up and like every answer needed to be there and it needed to be like, and this is what's going to happen in the future. And everyone made friends. And now that everyone's going to walk into the sunset and the story is finished. It was a fine read until it was a bad read. So this isn't the way I wanted to wrap up the vlog. That was The Unwedding, and those are all the books that I read, and hopefully you gained something from this very long vlog. Let me acknowledge, I also am an over-explainer, and I talk too much, but I'm not trying to write a book. You know, like, does this video need to be an hour long? No. But I also don't have an editor telling me to shut up, and Ali Condi needed one of those. I love you as a friend. Bye!